What is up, everybody? It's Axel here for AnimeUproar, and as you know, that means we have another Jujutsu Kaisen video. Since we covered special grade sorcerers in our previous video, today we'll be discussing their counterparts in these special grade curses. If you enjoy this video and want to see more Jujutsu Kaisen content on this channel, be sure to leave a like and maybe consider leaving a comment with what you'd like to see me talk about next. It will only take a second, but it's a huge help to the channel. And hey, if you haven't subscribed to AnimeUproar, make this the video that you do so by clicking the bell and selecting all notifications. Finally, you can also follow AnimeUproar on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar, or you can follow myself at AxelBeats. Of course, this video will contain Jujutsu Kaisen manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. Also, speaking of the manga, it will be returning this weekend, so look forward to a chapter review here on AnimeUproar to keep you up to date with the events of Jujutsu Kaisen. With all of that out of the way, let's get into the video. So while we've seen a bunch of what I consider to be weaker special grade curses, this video will focus on the 4 special grade curses in Geto's gang, being Mahito, Jogo, Hanami, and Dagon, the Curse Womb trio being Chozo, Eso, and Kechisu, and then we'll finish up with the vengeful spirits like Cursed Rika, Tamano no Mae, Kuchisaka Onna, and Sukuna. I realize that this isn't all of the special grade curses that we've seen so far, but let's be real, a lot of them just aren't all that, well, special. Of course, all special grade curses are pretty powerful, with the general descriptor of them being that a cluster bomb might be able to deal with them, but when it comes to the less relevant ones, there tends to just not be a whole lot to talk about because they were dealt with so quickly, or they're just so bare bones. The only 2 that I'm going to touch on in this video will be the Finger Bearer and the Smallpox Deity. They aren't particularly special, but they at least do play some role in the story, so I'll talk about them quickly. The Finger Bearers are curses which have consumed one of Sukuna's fingers. This makes them much stronger than they would have been otherwise, and it also allows them to create incomplete domains. However, that's kind of the extent to them, honestly. I consider them to be the floor of the special grade curse tier. Yes, they're strong, but they don't really have that special part of special grade curses. We also had the Smallpox Deity. This curse fought against Mei Mei, and while it didn't really last that long, it was definitely a very interesting curse. Using a domain expansion, it would continuously trap its target in a coffin and force them to escape before they were crushed by a tombstone. If they were crushed, they would be infected with smallpox. I like this for a lot of reasons, but the main one is that it's so ridiculous and over the top that it managed to get me to be even more invested in the fight. Of course, this also meant that this was one of the few curses we've seen use a domain expansion, but yeah, now that the small fries are out of the way, let's get into the meat and potatoes. 4 of the more relevant special grade curses are the ones that we see working directly with Geto. Jogo is probably the most straightforward and easy to deal with, so let's start there. Jogo is kind of this crotchety old man curse who looks like a cyclops with a small volcano on his head. Kind of like that episode of SpongeBob where Squidward became a superhero. And as you might imagine based on his looks, he has mostly fire-based abilities. His innate ability is called Disaster Flame, which allows him to generate and control volcanoes anywhere he pleases within a range. However, for smaller enemies, he might create small exploding insects which he can launch at targets, or if the enemy is a real threat, he can use Maximum Meteor to create a massive fireball that, as the name suggests, resembles a meteor. Finally, of course, Jogo has his domain expansion, Coffin of the Iron Mountain, which brings him and his opponent into a massive volcano, in which he can control all of the lava and rock. Mahito is a patchwork-looking man with stitches all over his face and body. While most of the curses we've seen are kind of indifferent to human lives, they don't usually really care one way or another if they have to kill them. Mahito is obsessive about collecting and experimenting on humans, which I think makes him one of the most dangerous, and definitely one of the most creepy curses in the series. This is supplemented when you take into account his innate technique, Idle Transfiguration. This effectively allows him to morph the soul of anything he touches, and by doing so he can change their body into whatever he wants. This can be used to heal, clone himself, or transform part of himself into a weapon. All of that pretty damn cool. Where it gets a little bit on the nightmare side is that he often uses this to experiment on people, shrinking them down, turning them into withered husks, or expanding them to the point where they could be used as a small bridge. Worst of all, they live through all of that and experience it. So yeah, Mahito, a little bit disturbing. This of course isn't the limit of Mahito's abilities though. He can merge souls together, create transfigured humans who are kind of like zombie monsters, and finally he has instant spirit body of distorted killing, which was basically his level up. After finding the essence of his own soul, he became much stronger and gained a much scarier body to match. Speaking of a scary body, let's take a look at Hanami. Hanami is this giant white-skinned curse with black markings all over his body and branches coming from his eyes to form horns. His ability is Disaster Plant, which allows him to create, manipulate, and control nature, typically working with wood, roots, or plants to attack or bind his opponents. He can also make any of his creations vanish instantly whenever he wants, which can make fighting him very tricky. His other abilities include shooting cursed buds into his enemies, which will grow inside of them and deal damage when they use cursed energy. And if Hanami wants to stop a fight, he can create a flowery field in which a mass of petals will float up and remove the enemy's will to fight. Finally, Hanami also has an insane healing ability that can keep up with a ton of damage. And finishing up our quartet is the villain from Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest. I refuse to call him Dagon. His name is now Davy Jones. You cannot convince me otherwise, so don't bother trying. Anyways, as you might expect of Davy Jones, all of his abilities have to do with water and piratey stuff, although admittedly we haven't really seen that much of him. His innate ability is called Disaster Tide, and it allows him to create a ton of water and sea monsters, all of which can be manipulated or controlled at least at some level. He can also use his domain, Horizon of the Captivating Skanda, to create a beautiful beach that he can just kinda chill and relax on, or, I don't know, launch a never-ending swarm of sea monsters at his opponents until they devour them whole, just like in Pirates of the Caribbean. Our next group is the Cursed Womb Death Painting Trio, each of which have a very strong sense of family, which is kind of a neat detail. The Cursed Wombs are an interesting topic in themselves, so if you want a video on them in the future, be sure to let us know in the comments. Of all of the Cursed Wombs, we're only going to be focusing on the Death Painting Trio, these being Kechizu, Eso, and Chozo. Kechizu and Eso are the ones who battled Yuji and Nobara at the end of Season 1 in the anime. Each of these two have similarities in that they use rotting-based abilities, however physically, they aren't exactly twins. Eso looks like just a run-of-the-mill buff dude with the exception of a horrific, truly terrifying face on his back. Meanwhile, Kechizu is, well, I don't even know how to describe this guy, other than saying he's a mix of Gluttony from Fullmetal Alchemist and Mike Wazowski from Monsters, Inc., but in the worst way. Each of their abilities focus around rotting away anything that's touched by their blood. However, Eso is more powerful, potent, and has more options. These include being able to shape his blood into simple wings, which will give him a little bit of extra mobility, or to attack from a distance. Regardless though, once the target has been infected with the toxic blood, Eso is able to activate Decay, which puts both a beautiful design on the affected area and basically puts that person's life on a very short timer. Their abilities are honestly very simple, but hey, it's still made for a damn good fight. The eldest of the three brothers is Chozo, and he is easily the most powerful of all of them, while also looking much more human than his siblings. To begin with, Chozo doesn't seem to have any of the toxic or rotting properties that his brothers had. Instead, he's just an extremely talented user of blood manipulation. This, of course, allows him to control his own blood. His most common technique with this involves cupping his palms together to make a funnel with his fingers and then firing off blood in either shots or streams at incredible speeds and with devastating force. It is much more versatile than that though. He can also make knives from the blood and then rotate the blood within it to effectively make a very small-scale chainsaw. He can also change his own blood's composition, raising the red blood cells, body temperature, and his pulse to become faster and stronger, making him basically go gear second. Or he can harden his blood and launch it with Black Meteor for some devastating damage. And finally, that brings us to our imaginary vengeful spirits. Let's start with who is probably the strongest of the group, being Sukuna. As the king of curses, Sukuna is about as strong as you would think. Currently, he is more or less being held within Yuji, but who knows how long that's going to last, especially considering his binding vow. But at the end of the Shibuya incident, we got a short glimpse of Sukuna really letting loose, and that was insane. Watching him absolutely toy with Jogo and then taking down Mahoraga was incredible. Most of Sukuna's abilities revolve around slashing, and this comes in two flavors. Dismantle, which is just a normal everyday slash for regular objects, and Cleave, which automatically adjusts to become more powerful against opponents with cursed energy, or against things which are more durable. Having both of these essentially ensures that he can almost always one-shot whatever he's fighting. But let's say we have to fight something nearly invincible like Mahoraga. Here, he can rely on his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. This creates a 200-meter radius that constantly slashes at everything within it. That said, there is no barrier around it, so someone could technically escape if they could manage to run fast enough. That is the trade-off for having this massive range on this domain. Now, on top of this, while every other character so far only has one innate ability available, Sukuna seems to have a second one, as he also managed to use flame-based attacks as well. Oh, and he can use his reverse curse technique to regrow limbs, revive Yuji from being dead after his heart removed, you know, simple things like that. And since we just had the king of curses, let's move on to the queen. Rika Orimoto was childhood friends with Yuta before she was hit by a car, and after dying, she was cursed. This led her to becoming Cursed Rika, a spirit with immeasurable cursed energy that can take the shape of any cursed technique. When manifested, she is ungodly strong and can rip apart massive spirits with ease. Also, and this one is a little bit strange, but after a show of great devotion and dedication from Yuta, Rika is able to shoot a beam of pure love, which is apparently the strongest curse of all, and defeat some very powerful enemies. Listen, I love Jujutsu Kaisen, but Love Beam, that's a little bit much, you know? Either way, Rika also seems to be able to copy other curse techniques, as she created a megaphone which held the cursed speech technique within it and allowed for Yuta to use it freely. Our final two imaginary vengeful cursed spirits are Tamino no Mae and Kuchisake Onna, both of which were controlled by Geto, so I thought I'd couple them together here. However, each of them did not share the same amount of time in the spotlight. Unfortunately, Tamino no Mae kind of doesn't do anything really before being defeated. Kuchisake Onna, on the other hand, is pretty damn cool. Her innate technique is scissors. She can create a set of scissors in her hand, and then create and control a slew of giant scissors around her opponent, which will try to cut off their limbs. And that is horrifying, and I love it. Finally, she can also create an innate domain which locks her opponents within it until they answer a question that she asks. If she doesn't like the answer, the domain will be dispelled and the scissors will cut her target immediately. And done. Not gonna lie, didn't realize there were so many special grade curses in the series so far, and I only really covered the really important or interesting ones on top of that. Kinda feels like they aren't as special as they let on, but I guess that is kind of the point the series is trying to drive home with the constant power creep of curses in their world. They have this idea that special grade curses are going to become the norm if things continue to spin out of control. But what do you guys think? Which cursed spirit is your favorite? I'm pretty partial to Chozo and Rika, honestly. I just find them pretty damn cool, and Mahito has his own set of interesting traits, which are gross, but also very interesting. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed this Jujutsu Kaisen video and want to see more, please leave a like, and if you're new to AnimeUproar, remember to subscribe and ring that bell. By selecting all notifications, you can help guarantee that you will not miss any future videos. With that being said, you can also follow AnimeUproar at AnimeUproar on Twitter and Instagram, or myself at AxelBeats. I want to give a big thank you to all of our AnimeUproar patrons for making videos like this one possible. A special thank you to the absolute mad lad and disciple of Lord Twigo himself, Alpha Sigma. And of course all of our The One Tier patrons, the ones who stand above all other clans: Ingrata, Patehefa, Algital, Dr. Cortman, The Toasted Chi, The Spike 8227, Emperor Otaku, Spidey Life Tinel, Tungsten Tarkus, Baked Buddhist, Cody Hebert, and Monkey D. Quilly. And of course, I want to thank our pro hero patrons, including the one and only Gilgamesh, the red-haired Raven, Angel Cruz, Anatoly Kazitsky, Very Gucci, Alicia Akhter, Bonnie Parks, Hinokami and Water, Joanne Garcia, Ted Not Ted, Fatboy Games, Corey McGowan, Metal Mama, Deadly Saint, Soul Rise, Slice and Dice. If you're enjoying our videos and feel like they're adding some level of value to your life, please consider supporting us over on Patreon. Even $1 gives you access to our patron-exclusive Discord, and will get your name in all of our videos along with these fantastic people. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, stay excellent.